Riku is an average boy who gets roped into some dodgy gang wars. After he's targeted, he gets recruited by a gang named Crawler who offer him help. By the way, if you need captions, you can press the settings button and click on captions to select subtitles for any language you speak. As a boy is sitting on the ground in front of some people, he declares that he is no longer an outsider and slashes the skin of his hand with a shard of glass. He cuts a symbol and remarks that crawling on the ground, these insects are members of Crawler and this is the story of them taking flight. In a flashback, the boy tearfully asks someone else to stop it. The kid in front of them smilingly drops the box containing an insect and tells him to just put this poor thing out of its misery. He tells the boy to show him some guts and gets ready to punch him. The boy, Riku, hurriedly wakes up on his bed and heads to the prefectural central high school. His friend asks if he didn't sleep well since he looks kinda rough, but he says he was just grinding out a mobile game, inwardly saying he can't tell them he had a nightmare about when he was bullied. School life is over if they look down on you, and the worst case scenario is that he'll get bullied again. He admits, getting on the teacher's radar is also a pain and acting moderately tough is just right. He notices a boy holding someone back while his friend gets ready to punch him in the face and remarks teasing that doesn't count as bullying means establishing dominance. Riku glares and kicks the leg of a chair near him, so the bullies hurriedly decide to leave. Riku's friend says that was pretty cool, so he mutters that they were just annoying. He's not noble enough to play hero, but he's not patient enough to keep watching things he doesn't want to see. Outside, he mutters that these people have a pain in the butt personality and suddenly hears some noise. He's surprised to see a student getting beaten up. The bullies ask the student what's wrong and say he has good upbringing but poor comprehension. They say they're not demons and if he just listens, they'll be nice to him. Riku remarks that this isn't just teasing and wonders if he should go get a teacher. He frustratingly gets ready to stop them, but his friend grabs his shoulder and tells him to stay away from these guys. His friend says Riku shouldn't get involved with them. Riku asks if they're really that scary, so his friend says these guys themselves aren't much, the problem is who's backing them. He explains that his older brother goes to Kitagawa Technical High and recently, a dangerous group called Hokuto-ren has been expanding to other schools. Some people who opposed them got their bones crushed and some had their families targeted. Riku doesn't believe that's true since if they went that far, they'd be arrested immediately, but his friend says not a single one has been arrested for some reason. Riku thinks they're probably exaggerating and the delinquent gangs are just hyping themselves up. His friend hopes that all it is and reminds Riku that he's warned him. While walking back home, Riku annoyingly says this is the Reiwa era since gangsters are sending people to the hospital and going after families. He believes there's no way the police wouldn't act in a small city like Kirino. Speaking of Hako, he remembers that guy was from there as well, but suddenly hears a girl's voice. In a tunnel, a few boys are crowded around a girl, and one tells her to come over here. He says they're pretty nice since they're giving some scraps to a boy. Shocked, Riku remarks that this is way past bullying, it's a crime and thinks he should report this. The bully tells the boy he can do whatever he wants to her, and that it's not a problem if he goes for it, sign he's one of them. The bully cheers him on and tells him to show some guts, hearing which Riku suddenly remembers the guy who bullied him. He instantly takes down one of the bullies and asks the others if ganging up on someone weak is that guts mean to them. Another bully angrily asks what the hell he thinks he's doing, and rushes forward to attack, but Riku swiftly elbows him in the stomach. The main bully sees that he's been training as Riku, remarks that he moved without thinking even though he didn't mean to get involved. The bully takes out a knife and runs towards him, but Riku kicks him in the face. The girl hurriedly runs away as Riku sees that this guy was too serious to be carrying around a weapon and wonders if they can really cover this up. The boy being bullied starts to say something, but Riku says he doesn't need to thank him since he just acted on his own. However, the boy apologizes to him. The next day in school, Riku sees his classmates giving him some strange looks and wonders what's up. A teacher arrives and asks him to come with him for a moment. Riku finds a pair of detectives from Kirino police station waiting for him and they ask where he was and what he was doing yesterday around 5 p.m. Riku wonders if he can really say he was in a fight. The detectives say he got home close to 6 p.m. according to his family. Riku is surprised they talked to his family too. The detectives say 3 of his classmates were assaulted yesterday and one of them is seriously injured and will need 2 months to recover, so they ask if he knows anything about this. Riku is stunned to see a picture of the bully from before in a beaten up state. He remarks that this wasn't him since he avoided vital points and didn't break any bones, and inwardly questions what the hell is going on. Riku's teachers ask what the truth is, so Riku remarks that he didn't seriously injure anyone, but it's true that he fought with them, so he wonders if he should tell the truth. The detectives warns that it's better for him to turn himself in early if he was involved, since for a first-time juvenile offense, he won't get a heavy sentence, but the civil case is different, and if he doesn't show remorse, the compensation could skyrocket. Later, as Riku is walking home, he wonders if he should turn himself in and remembers his teacher saying, they'll wait for the investigation results before taking disciplinary action, and Riku will be expelled in the worst case. As he arrives home, he wonders what he's going to tell his mom. Riku's mom hurriedly grabs him and tells him to take off his shirt, so he slowly complies. She says it doesn't look like he was hit anywhere, so Riku says she doesn't need to worry. She asks if there's anything troubling him, but he confirms that he's fine, remarking that his dad's death and how they handled his past bullying means his mom's heart is completely worn out. He angrily clenches his fist and says he never wants to make her worry again. The next day, Riku finds the boy who was being bullied and asks if he can talk to him for a minute. He tells the boy he knows the situation he's in and he'll do anything he can, but the boy says he can't testify in his favor. Riku says that was quick, so the boy says he doesn't understand anything and asks why he thinks he's been enduring this whole time. He says it's because he's scared. What Riku's made an enemy of isn't just some delinquent group, they're the predators of Kirino City, and they even have adults as their pawns. Riku remembers Yuki saying something similar and asks why guys like that would bother framing him. The boy says he doesn't know and apologizes before Riku is suddenly hit in the back of the head. The bully from before says he came to return the favor, shocking Riku, who realizes the boy called them. The bully asks Riku if it hurts, and says getting grilled by the cops must be tough, but Riku slowly asks the bully who gave him those injuries. He says the bully went down in one hit and asks how he ended up all beat up like that. He asks the bully if he took a nasty fall, but a lackey crushes Riku under his foot. The bully says they got screwed over big time because he got involved, so it's time to settle the score. Riku can't believe there's someone who beat this guy up just to frame him. He grabs the foot of the guy above him and takes him down. He gets up, saying there's a lot he doesn't understand, but he's figured out, the bully is just a low-level pawn being used, and putting up with it won't let to any good, so he'll have to dig up the truth. He questions who's the one behind him, but the bully tells him to not get cocky as the other boys run towards Riku. As he's blocking, he inwardly says, there's no opening to attack with this many people and him armed. However, someone suddenly takes the weapon of one of the boys. Someone suddenly appears behind him and sees that a whole mob is ganging up on one guy and swinging a weapon around in broad daylight, which is pretty bold. The bully shockingly recognizes the pattern on the guy's arm before another boy appears behind him and asks if he's not going to continue. He asks if he can record this and upload it with some lame background music since they can't leave evidence behind, not for Hokuto-ren. The bullies hurriedly run away, shocking Riku, who wonders who these guys are and if he's been saved. Later, Riku wakes up in a warehouse in front of the boy from before who says he wasn't sure whether to take him to the hospital, but he figured keeping a low profile would be better for him. Riku slowly asks where he is, so the boy says this is their hideout, and introduces themselves as Crawler. As Riku gets up, the boy asks where he's going, so he says he's leaving. He says he's grateful they drove off Hokuto-ren, but he can't stay here. However, another boy cheerily says there's no need to be in such a hurry, they should have some tea and talk things over slowly since he's got some special tea leaves. Riku says he doesn't need to talk to them, and he's not drinking tea, so the boy suggests that they could have coffee instead, since they've got the finest Blue Mountain coffee, but Riku hurriedly says that's not the. He says he knows what kind of people they are and what they want, they're a gang that's opposing Hokuto-ren and are gathering information on them. The boy from before says that's partially correct and takes out a knife, muttering that he should cooperate if he understands that much. Riku slowly turns around, expecting him to threaten him, but he sees that the boy's just cutting some cake. The boy says he thought it would go well with some tea, and some other members tell Riku to at least have some tea with them since two of their executives are inviting him. The boy explains that Hokuto-ren are guys who don't do anything unless there's profit in it. They went as far as hurting their own people, so there must be a reason they framed Riku. They've been tracking their movements for a long time, so Riku should also investigate why he's going through all this. He thinks their interests align and asks Riku if he'll lend them his strength. However, Riku refuses and says only the naive fall for sweet talk from Yakuza. The other members annoyingly ask what he thinks they are, so he says it's pretty much the same thing, they can't do anything alone, so they band together and act tough. He remarks that he'll never trust delinquents, show them kindness and they'll take advantage and make you suffer. He declares that he hates punks, so the executive cheerily says he's got some real guts, which is pretty rare these days. Riku says he's not happy getting compliments from them and is leaving. He calls them worms, since they must be aware they're crawling on the ground, judging from their name. The other members get annoyed and ask if he's making fun of them, but a blonde boy suddenly jumps in front of Riku and tells the others to stop. He says what they're saying isn't wrong, they are bottom feeders, but nobody has the right to look down on worms crawling on the ground. Riku remarks that the atmosphere's suddenly gotten intense and realizes this man is Crawler's leader. The other members get ready to back up the boss, but the executive, Saito asks what they're doing and if Reiji ever asked them for help. He tells them to stay out of it since it's just one person. Riku worryingly wonders what this overwhelming pressure is and braces himself, saying he won't be intimidated. Reiji asks if he's going to apologize, but Riku says he stands by his words. Reiji says he doesn't dislike people who have a backbone and rushes forward. Riku is surprised by how strong that attack was and realizes it's over if takes a direct hit since this guy is way beyond a black belt holder. He hurriedly continues dodging Reiji's attacks and the executives admit he's not bad. Reiji says Riku is at his limit since his footwork is slowing down, so Riku remarks that he can't keep dodging forever, but there's not even a split second to counterattack and he can't step forward even one step. However, he tells himself that's wrong and decides to step forward since it's the only way to win. He inwardly declares that he won't back down, but Reiji says it's almost over and punches him in the stomach. The other executive sees that he finally got hit, but Saito tells him to look closely. The executive realizes Riku was willing to take a hit himself to land a strike before Riku collapses. Reiji stirs for a moment, worrying the members, but he takes out his console and says he's tired so he wants to play games. He asks if he can eat the Baumkuchen, so the executive asks if he's still playing that old game. A member says he thought Riku's attack actually hurt Reiji, but another one says there's no way that could happen. However, Reiji asks the executive, Makio, for Riku's name and says he might be able to fly someday with that spirit. Riku is massaging his injury in school and wonders who the hell that guy was but doesn't think he'll see him again. His classmates are still staring at him, so Riku remarks that this atmosphere is nostalgic since it was always like this a few years ago, but he's used to being alone so he doesn't really care anymore. However, a boy cheerily greets him and says it's rude that he hasn't even said hello to him. Riku looks up and is shocked to see Makio from Crawler. He hurriedly asks why he's here, so Makio says he came to see him and asks if Central High's uniform suits him. Riku asks what the hell he came for and if it's payback, but Makio says there's no way he'd get revenge over something like that and is about to explain. However, someone angrily asks who's making that noise and they see it's the student guidance counselor. The teacher, Goriyama, approaches Riku and asks if he's apologized to the students he injured yet. He angrily says he can't believe they have trash like him at school and questions if his parents' discipline was lacking, but Riku questions if their bullying isn't a problem. Makio cheerily thanks Goriyama for the passionate morning guidance and lists down his information before asking if he likes younger girls with big chests. Goriyama asks which class he's from before Makio cuts him off and says he happened to see him at a hotel entrance the other day. He shows him a picture and says writing letters is quite an unusual hobby these days, and as his friend, he's deeply concerned about Riku's case, which is why he's here, encouraging his rehabilitation this morning. He asks Goriyama to leave this to him for a while and stay out of it, so Goriyama annoyingly leaves. Makio tells Riku they should change locations since the air here is bad. They head to a restaurant and Makio orders some snacks for them both. Riku initially declines, but the coffee is really bitter, so Makio says he should have a bit of pancake to cleanse his palate. He decides to formally introduce himself and says he's Uda Makio. He attends South High's correspondence program while buying and selling information. He names the photos he showed Goriyama as an example and says accurate information always has value no matter the era, so it's his personal business. Test contents, student troubles, educator scandals, depending on how you use it, you could even start a war with information, but of course, he chooses his customers carefully. Riko wonders what's up with this guy since he doesn't give off a delinquent vibe at all. Makio says he wanted to give him accurate information about Crawler and says he's misunderstanding them, especially their boss. Riku asks what he means, so Makio questions if he's curious. They head to Sawanobe district on bike and Makio explains that kids in Kirino City are raised being told not to go near here. This is a town where time stopped, with post-war barracks and tenement houses still remaining. Thanks to that, rent is cheap, so people with problems end up here, but the public safety is pretty lax. They notice a boy being beaten and Riku is about to stop the bully, but Makio tells him to hold on. They see Reiji in front of them and Riku says he's not doing anything, but Makio tells him to just wait. As the boy is crying, Reiji asks him why he doesn't fight back. The boy says he's small and his punches won't reach the guy since he's an adult, so Reiji tells him to kick instead and shows how he can easily crack a wall with a single kick. He explains that kicks have more power and vital points are easier to target, and even a child like him can knock down an adult if he wants. He tells the kid to learn it right now and says he'll watch over him. Makio explains to Riku that that's the boss's values, giving is easy but that's not what matters. To survive, there are times when you must win by any means necessary. That child probably has even harsher realities waiting ahead, but Reiji wants to give real strength to those everyone has abandoned. That's Crawler's ideal. Riku wonders what these guys are as Makio asks if he hates punks who can't do anything alone and if he's changed his view of them. He questions if he feels like cooperating about Hokuto-ren now, so Riku says he won't trust them so easily and needs to confirm important things with his own eyes. Reiji approaches them and says he's making dinner now so they should come too since meals are better when they're lively. Riku says he's not really hungry as Makio realizes something. Makio cheerily says that's very kind and he was just thinking about dinner. He tells Riku to go ahead while he puts his bike away. Riku is shocked by how bad the food looks as Reiji says this is a special protein hot pot and tells Riku to eat it if he wants to get incredibly big since it's insanely delicious. Riku realizes Makio ran away as Reiji says he'll kill him if he leaves any. As Riku is sitting on a bench, he wearily says his stomach feels heavy and wonders what the hell was in that hot pot. The bully from before approaches Riku and says he never thought he'd be connected to Crawler. He introduces himself as Sahara Saito and asks if he wants to make a deal with him. He asks for information about Crawler and says if Riku does that, he'll withdraw the complaint and all his problems will be solved, which isn't a bad deal. However, Riku instantly refuses. Sahara asks why when he could make all this go away so easily, but Riku says he doesn't know much about them and even if he did, he questions why he would tell him. As Riku is walking, he remarks that this is getting troublesome since he somehow got dragged into a gang war. Makio suddenly appears in front of him so Riku annoyingly asks where the hell he was since he was forced to eat all of that weird hot pot because of him. Makio calms him down and reminds him that he did treat him to coffee at lunch. Riku doesn't think that makes them even, but Makio asks what he was talking about with that Hokuto-ren guy. Riku says it was nothing, so Makio mutters that they need to crush them soon since they're so annoying. He asks Riku if he wants to join the war since if Hokuto-ren disappear, the troubles he's dealing with will be solved too and it would help them out as well. He tells Riku he was just kidding, but whether he takes it seriously or not is up to him, so he should contact him if he changes his mind. The next day, Riku wonders if Crawler's really going to war with Hokuto-ren. He sees the boy from before, Yuona Shota, in front of him and notices that he's shoplifting. Shota goes into an alleyway and gives the book to some boys from Hokuto-ren before Saito suddenly appears behind Riku and says that's how they operate. Riku gets startled and annoyingly asks why they always show up out of nowhere, so he introduces himself and asks Riku to remember his name. He says he was just working at a nearby cafe and asks if he wants to stop by since he'll give him a free drink, but Riku declines. However, Saito asks if he doesn't have a lot of things he wants to ask. In the cafe, Saito pours him a coffee and Riku is surprised by how delicious it is. Saito cheerily sees that he gets it and says the beans and roasting are on a different level. He says they should have a nice chat now and tells him to ask away if he has any questions. Riku asks if it's true they're going to war with Hokuto-ren since he was invited to join. Saito says they've got a bit of history with them and need to settle things. If they're worms, Hokuto-ren are spiders and Riku was just unlucky enough to get caught in their web. He reminds him of that kid and says Hokuto-ren exploits people's weaknesses, drags them into crimes and uses those crimes to blackmail even their parents. He says that's how Hokuto-ren became so powerful in this town and decides to give him some advice as a big brother. Saito tells Riku to not join this war if he's half-hearted and says he'll give him credit for his fighting skills, but being useful in battle is different, so if Riku joins on a whim, he won't just get injured. He tells Riku to not do anything if he's not prepared since having half-hearted people interfering will just cause problems for them and they'll clean up his mess, so he should just stay quiet. Riku slams his hand on the table, saying he didn't ask them for anything and he's not joining. More than that, he angrily declares that he doesn't need punks looking after him. Saito laughingly sees that he made him angry and says he'll have to see what he's made of now. He asks Riku to wait here since his shift is almost over and later, they head out and decide to have a fight. As Saito is rushing towards him with a punch, Riku tells him to watch carefully, dodge it, and counter, but Saito unexpectedly kicks him in the stomach and says Riku is pretty easy to have fallen for a simple feint like that. He coldly mutters that Riku's bad at fighting if he can't get up already. He adds that when Riku fought Reiji the other day, he forced himself to dodge all his jabs and got tired out quickly as a result. The last hit he landed was impressive, but that's all. He questions if Riku only learned forms and if he's ever fought someone who actually uses strategy. Riku remarks that he can see right through him. If he gets stronger, he can get back at the people who bullied him. His mom's idea was for him to start going to a karate dojo, but whenever he sees people hitting each other, he can't help but remember the bad memories of all the guys who bullied him. Even so, he tried to get stronger so punks wouldn't look down on him, and yet, Saito says it's over if Riku can't even speak anymore and apologizes for dragging him into this, saying he'll tell Makio to stay away from him. When Riku returns home, he's surprised to see no one but hears water running, so he goes to check and shockingly sees his mum covered in injuries. He hurriedly asks what happened, so she just says there was a little trouble at work and it's nothing serious. A boy warns Sahara that it's because he's been dragging his feet that they had to step in. They hurt troublesome people, their friend, families, everyone, and that's the fastest way to solve a situation. Sahara hurriedly apologizes, so the boy, Rio, says the boss will cover up minor stuff for them before Renya appears behind him. Riku goes to the store. His mother works in and the manager tells him, some guys in hoodies suddenly attacked them, trashed the store, and his mother got injured. Riku goes up to the policeman and asks who the culprits are. One officer says it's currently under investigation and another says he might not understand, but the police have it rough too. After all, everyone had their faces covered and there's no way to identify them with not a lot of people and witnesses around. They ask him to bear with them since it's going to take some time hearing, which Riku frustratingly contacts Makio. They meet at a restaurant later and Makio asks what he wants to eat. He tells him to order whatever he likes since he'll pay, but Riku asks for information about Hokuto-ren members. Makio says that's quite a big order, so Riku explains the situation to him. Makio agrees that that's harassment just for the sake of pure violence, not even money or revenge. He explains that recently, Hokuto-ren's main force, meaning the guys from Hoko, have been expanding their activities and are indiscriminately attacking people connected to anyone opposing Hokuto-ren, but targeting the weak is their standard tactic. He asks Riku what he's going to do with this information and believes planning to get revenge alone is suicide. Riku angrily says he doesn't care, his mom is his only family. Makio asks to let him think about it and says Riku needs to calm down too. He suddenly receives a notification and says they're under attack. Some hooded guys are beating up members of Crawler who hurriedly realize they have to report this to the boss. However, Rio asks where the hell they think they're going. The boys who the hell he is and which crew he's from, so he shouts that he's Rio Ibu of the Hokuto-ren and starts beating them both up. Sahara slowly asks if this isn't going too far, so Rio reminds him that this is a cleaning operation and questions what's wrong with cleaning up these worms' filthy nest. He asks the Crawler members if they know how many deals of theirs they've ruined. As he's walking with his hooded lackeys, Reiji suddenly appears on a rooftop and tells him to not make so much noise since he woke him up when he was finally sleeping. He swiftly takes the hooded guys out and asks Rio if he wants to have a war here. He says he's fine with that, but this is their home turf, and witness testimonies will work in their favor, so even if someone disappears, they won't be found. Renya tells Rio if solders of this level could handle them, this would have been over long ago, so they'll pull back for now. Rio tries to argue, but he tells him to just go home. Reiji shouts for Renya to wait and throws a can at him, so Renya tells Rio leave first. He menacingly asks Reiji what he wants, while as Riku and Makio arrive on their bike, Riku suddenly notices Rio from afar and recognizes him as the kid who used to bully him when he was young. Reiji sees that Renya's leading around such boring guys, so Renya asks if he's some upstanding citizen. Reiji says even lowlifes are trying to spread their wings in their own way, but those guys get their wings ripped off. He tells Renya to come back since he doesn't need to be with guys like that. Hearing this, Renya suddenly attacks him, but Reiji swiftly dodges and punches him. Renya blocks the punch and sees that he hasn't changed. Reiji asks if he's not coming back, so Renya declines before Makio and Riku arrive. Makio recognizes Renya and tells Riku he's the current boss of Hokuto-ren and a former Crawler member. Reiji asks Renya if he got hurt since he's got that big bandage. Renya sees that he took off the bandage covering his Crawler sticker and tells Reiji to just wait while he arranges the war before asking if they should drag the locals into this. Riku notices Reiji's fist clench and Makio says Renya is the biggest reason they have to crush Hokuto-ren. A girl suddenly slaps Riku and Makio on the back of their heads and questions if they're fighting again. She suddenly realizes Riku is someone else and asks who he is before turning around and asking Reiji where he's going. He says it's none of her business, so she asks about his friend. Later, she apologizes to Riku for hitting him and introduces herself as Rise, Reiji's older sister. She gives them juice as an apology and tells Riku to come drink here when he's old enough. As Riku blushes, she asks Makio how he's been, so he cheerily says it's been a while, remarking that she's still dressed crazy. Riku suddenly notices a photo of them when they were kids, so Rise says that's her, Reiji and Renya, revealing that they've been together since they were kids. However, it's now like this, and they won't tell her what happened. Riku asks if she doesn't know why those two had a falling out, so she says she only remembers the date, the day their dad came back from prison, June 5th, 2 years ago. Presently, two members of Hokuto-ren are sitting together. One says he thought they'd get to go wild today, but Renya is too soft and can't hurt his old buddies from when he was in Crawler. He throws a corn dog away since it's greasy and hurriedly notices Renya, so he praises him for the good work today. However, Renya grabs him by the head and tells him to eat it. He questions why he thinks he stopped the conflict and if he doesn't even understand that. Renya warns the guy that if even small fries like them lose, it tarnishes Hokuto-ren's name. The guy hurriedly apologizes, after which Renya orders him to call everyone together, right now. The other guy asks why, so Renya says there's only one reason: to crush Crawler. Makio gives Riku the information he asked for and explains that it's the security camera footage from the bento shop. Just as expected, the police had seized it, but it shows the exact moment Riku's mom was attacked. He apologetically says he needs Riku to watch it in front of him since he looked into Riku's past as well, and once he sees this, he won't be able to stay calm. Riku sees Ryo in the footage and thanks Makio. Makio asks if he's going to get revenge, so Riku says that's none of his business, hearing which Makio mutters that their aftercare service is top-notch too. A member of Hokuto-ren asks Ryo if he's sure about this since they've been called in, and if he ignores it, who knows what Renya will do to him. Ryo asks if it's just about setting up the war and says he doesn't care about that, he just needs someone to hit and doesn't mind if that someone is him. Riku receives a call and smiles upon seeing the caller. Later, Ryo cheerily greets Riku and asks how many years it's been since this is the first time they've met since they were kids. He calls him a loser and asks if he's been doing good before saying he's got tons of fun memories with him, drawing all over his body, showing him naked to the girls, killing his bugs. He says he never thought he'd get a call from him of all people, so Riku angrily asks why he went after his mom. Ryo says he didn't have a choice. Their rule is no mercy for anyone who gets in Hokuto-ren's way, and even he felt a little bad beating up the mom of someone he knows. He smilingly says he's grateful too since he thought hitting some old hag wouldn't do anything for him, but it was actually pretty exciting. Riku angrily rushes forward to attack him, but Ryo dodges and punches him in the face. He says they'll get 1 point per hit and tells his lackeys they can have a turn later too. If they get 10 points, he'll treat them to barbecue. He cockily tells Riku to get up so they can play like they used to. Riku shouts that he won't forgive him and tries to attack, but he isn't able to land a hit or even touch him. Ryo says he's losing his edge and it's his turn now. He starts rapidly pummeling Riku and says he fought his way up to an executive with his fists. He hasn't lived some soft life like Riku. He asks what's up with that look and questions if he wants him to make him cry like before. However, Renya suddenly appears behind Ryo and asks what he's doing. He reminds him that he called everyone together and questions if he's disrespecting the team. Ryo hurriedly says there's a reason for this, but Renya questions if he's making excuses despite being an executive and orders him to get moving. Standing over Riku, he asks if he's from Crawler and says he's got 3 days to quit. If he doesn't, he'll die. Riku slowly asks why he left Crawler when he was close with Reiji, so Renya says he'll kill him if he asks that again. A few moments later, Saito sees that Riku got wrecked and asks if he's still alive. Riku asks why he's here, so Saito says Makio asked him even though this is a busy time for him. He says the guy Riku fought is a real brawler and an amateur like him couldn't have beaten him, so he's lucky to get off with just those injuries. Now, he tells him to stay out of Hokuto-ren's business. Riku warily says he can't end it here and gets up. He admits he's bad at fighting and asks Saito to teach him how to knock Ryu flat and how to fight. Saito is surprised to see that Riku actually came, so he says he's the one who asked, and he's going to learn how to fight so he can beat that guy. Saito worryingly says he's got a lot going on even though he agreed before he could stop himself. However, if they're doing this, he's going to go all out. Ryu asks what he needs to do so. Saito tells him to watch his tone first, and use polite language with the person teaching him. Once he gets that, he should answer and come at him. Riku affirms this and refers to him as, "Sir," before lunging forward to attack. Saito asks what's up with those punches and tells Riku his aim's so obvious no one's ever going to get hit, even a cat can throw a sharper punch than him. He kicks Riku in the leg, knocking him down, and explains that he's so focused on attacking, his guard is wide open, but learning how to move comes from real experience. However, his kind big brother has come up with a special move just for him. Surprised, Riku asks what it is, so Saito declares that it's a counter. Riku doesn't say anything, so Saito asks for a bigger reaction, but Riku mutters that it just sounds kind of normal. Saito tells him to think back since he's already done it once, timed his full force blow to the opponent's attack. He says Riku hit Reiji hard enough to make him stagger, which is one of the weapons he has. The key is when he steps in and the ability to read a big telegraphed attack. From now on, Saito says he's going to keep hitting him non-stop, so he'd better learn it no matter what. As Riku hurriedly tries to block his attacks, Saito points out that his feet stopped moving and warns him to move since if he doesn't, he'll die. Later, Saito decides to take a break and tells Riku to make sure he eats lunch and refills his calories. Riku is surprised to see how much food Saito made for him, so he says he brewed some tea too, since freshly brewed tea is the best. He asks Riku if he feels like he's getting something or getting stronger in a fight. Riku admits he's not and says he just can't get used to hitting people, so he doesn't think he has a talent for fighting. The more they train, the more he overthinks it. Saito says that's fine since it just means he was raised with a lot of love and that's one of his weapons too. Riku asks why he joined Crawler, so Saito questions if he really wants to know and says it's a dumb story without any punchline. He was a kid from a pretty decent family, his folks ran a business out west and it did really well, they had a house with a garden and a pool. They even invited celebrities to his birthday parties, but then his parents messed up some investments, they lost everything and skipped town at night. Even kids can sense when there's something off, so the local brats targeted him and he was fighting every day. Maybe in another life, he'd have ended up at Hokuto-ren too, but then he met Reiji. In a flashback, Reiji asks Saito if he's the kid from Osaka, so he confirms this and asks why it matters to him, so Reiji abruptly asks him to teach him comedy. Presently, Riku asks what that's supposed to mean, so Saito explains that he wanted to enter a Manzai contest apparently, but it's pretty biased to assume that just because he's from Kansai. Riku isn't sure why he'd want to do that, so Saito says Reiji's home situation is complicated, he's been looking for ways to survive since he was a kid. Entertainment, fighting, creating a business, if it could lead to independence, he was interested in it. No matter what kind of environment he's in, he's always looking to the future and is the hope for worms like them, so he wants to be his right hand. He tells Riku to eat his bento since he made it specially for him, so Riku takes a bite and is impressed by how tasty it is. 3 days passed and when Riku arrives at their usual training spot, he's surprised to not see Saito there. He receives a call from him, saying they have to pause his training for a while since things have started moving and the war's begun. He tells Riku to not worry since he'll take down Hokuto-ren and Riku's problems down in one go, but as Saito is talking, a bike suddenly rushes at him from behind and one of the guys on it attacks him with a baton. Riku hears the noise and hurriedly calls Saito's name. Riku finds a bike with 2 guys lying on the ground with a crowd surrounding them. Some people say things feel pretty dangerous lately, and a woman adds that she heard the delinquent kids have been running wild recently. Just now, there were lots of them gathering at the scrapyard and the slant-eyed boy who got attacked earlier was heading that way. The members of Crawler and Hokuto-ren face off against each other in a scrapyard and Renya notices that Saito's not here, so he asks if he finally got fed up with Reiji. Reiji says that's none of his business and asks if he has a big mouth now. Renya tells him to quit yapping and come at him, so Reiji tells him to bring it on. As Riku is watching from outside, he notices that Saito is not here and inwardly says he should really let him know about this, but he wonders if it's okay for someone who's not on the team to walk into this. He questions if he really has the guts to stick his nose into these punks' business. Makio says he's impressed, Riku found this place, so Riku hurriedly says Saito's been attacked. Makio says both he and Reiji know but assures him it's fine since he'll come and that's just the kind of person he is. If he's worried, he says Riku can watch their war too. Renya announces that the rules of this war are simple. Each side sends out 3 strong guys to slug it out and the losers follow the winner's orders. Riku is surprised they really set rules for this, so Makio says if it turned into an all-out brawl, the cops would have to show up, but a straight fight between executives is just a matter of pride, so they'll call it a private dispute and stay out of it. Renya first sends out Naoki, an ugly-looking guy who asks who his opponent is. Until recently, Iruma Naoki was a promising wrestler who got kicked out for assault and joined Hokuto-ren. Makio decides to be the one to handle him, so Reiji asks if he's sure about this. Makio confirms that he is and tells Reiji to just leave it to him. Naoki smilingly asks if Crawler's throwing the first match and sees that an easy win walked right up. Riku asks Reiji if this is okay since there's no way Makio can win normally against that monster, but Reiji tells him to not worry since he's not an executive on brains alone. He's more greedy and stubborn than anyone, and he'll do anything to win. Makio stretches, so Naoki asks if he's just warming up and says even if swings with all he's got, he won't even be able to scratch him at his weight. Makio says he just doesn't skip prep and asks Naoki if he's really the type who looks down on people for their muscles, questioning if he wears that tight shirt just so everyone can notice. He mockingly says Naoki's body got big but he's stayed small as a person. Naoki declares that he's had enough of his mouth and lunges forward with a punch, but Makio easily dodges. Naoki admits he's not bad since it'd be boring if it ended in one hit, but he might actually entertain him. Makio decides to dodge the next one with a backflip and Riku is surprised to see that he's not attacking at all, so he wonders what he's planning. Makio gets cornered into a pile of garbage and quickly dodges a kick from Naoki, which leads to all the garbage falling around them. Makio cheerily says this place has had cave-ins a bunch of times. Hit it hard enough and the junk pile crumbles real easy, so he should watch his footing too. He kicks Naoki in the knee, causing him to collapse while groaning in pain. Makio recounts how 2 years ago, Naoki hurt his right knee at regionals, bad enough to knock his whole athletic career of course. He says he doesn't have a big body like him, so he uses anything he can to win a fight, his opponent's weak points, places where the terrain works in his favor. He looked it all up. Riku realizes Makio was playing dumb while looking for a place to trap him. Naoki hurriedly says he fights dirty, but Makio says this is a fight, so no hard feelings. Makio tells Naoki he won't be standing again for a while, and cheerily sees that an easy win walked right up before crushing his knee under his foot. Riku is stunned by how easy Makio made it look, but Makio warily staggers and mutters that Naoki's a former athlete, one wrong move and he might never have recovered. He explains that he watched his match footage over and over and ran simulations in his head, which is why even the bluff worked out. Riku asks why go that far, so Makio says he's got his own reasons. Even if he's weaker, he can't lose, that's his kind of guts. The members from Hokuto-ren are shocked to see that Naoki lost, so Renya sends out Ryo next. Ryo cheerily asks who's coming out on Crawler's side and says he'd like to wrap this up quick since he's got plans after this. A voice suddenly says it has to be him as Saito arrives and apologizes for being late. Riku hurriedly says he thought for sure Saito got hurt, but Saito asks what he's worrying for and assures him that he's fine. He tells Ryo the guys he sent after him were nothing but boogers, even in a group, they didn't stand a chance against him. He says he'll go rough up Ryo a bit, and tells Riku to watch close while his delinquent big brother gives him a lesson. However, Reiji says he knows Saito's leg is messed up and asks to see it. Riku realizes Saito has been walking a bit funny and is surprised to see that his foot's bandaged. Reiji says he was trying to act calm, but the way he walked gave it away, so he tells Saito to stand down. Saito tells Reiji to mind his own business and says he can't lose out on this one. Hokuto-ren sent out someone on an executive level, so he asks Reiji who here can beat that guy. He questions what he's even doing here if he doesn't stand his ground now, so Riku steps forward and says he'll do it. Saito asks who told him he can do that and says this has nothing to do with him. However, Riku says it does. Ryo's his opponent and he won't hand him to anyone because this is his responsibility, and also, he's not calm enough to watch Saito get hurt and do nothing. He declares that he's not an outsider anymore and slashes the Crawler symbol on his fist before announcing that he's one of Crawler's crew. Reiji says he doesn't have to force himself to get a tattoo. It's not like it's a hard requirement to join the team. The only requirement is whether he approves for not. Saito slowly asks Riku if he really thinks he can do this. Riku says he does. He's a worm crawling on the ground too. When the guys he thought were his friends treated him like he was contagious, he just accepted it and told himself that was fine, but it's not. He should have been fighting like they all do, for someone else's sake and for his own. Thus, he tells Saito he wants him to watch him right now. Hearing this, Saito tells Riku to go knock Ryo dead. Ryo cheerily says Riku as his opponent doesn't get him fired up and apologetically says he won't be holding back this time. Riku says he knows Ryo was the one who set up Saito's injury and tells him it's pathetic that he hurt him just because he can't beat him fairly. However, Ryo says if you get hurt, that just means you weren't careful enough. He sees that Crawler's really fallen for them to recruit a wimp like him. He declares that he'll stomp him now and punches, but Riku quickly dodges. Ryo is surprised by his movements, so Riku asks what's wrong and tells him to come on. Ryo angrily tells him to not get cocky and starts rapidly punching him, but Riku remarks that he can see Ryo's movements. He remarks that this is the result of training with Saito and tells himself to just protect the vital spots. Riku suddenly notices an opening and punches him on the shoulder, surprising the Hokuto-ren members who exclaim that he just nailed him with a counter. As Ryo gasps for air, Riku says he's bad at fighting, but Ryo's a Hokuto-ren executive, so his pride won't let him win unless it looks cool. However, he's different. As long as he's still standing at the end, even if he's a mess, that's enough because today, they're the ones who are going to be crawling on the ground. Ryo asks the Hokuto-ren members what they're standing around for and tells them to get hyped up. They start cheering for Ryo, who gets up and smilingly declares that he's going to kill Riku. Riku is surprised by this sudden pressure and tells himself to calm down, watch carefully and counter. He finds an opening and attacks, but surprisingly sees that Ryo's keeping his distance. Saito shouts that Ryo's changed his fighting style and Riku's counters won't work now. Overwhelmed, Riku says he can't see a chance to attack and wonders what he can do now. Ryo inwardly asks Riku if he really thought he could beat him with some half-assed strategy like that. He declares that he can't lose to all of them and says there's no way he'll let him be better than him at fighting. He remarks that, "You're in my way," were words his mother used to say to him a lot. That woman prioritized her love life over her own kid. Unwashed dishes piled up, stacks of bento containers, mountains of trash bags, that was his home. He saw Riku from the same school walking home happily with his mother. A scene he thought only existed in manga was right there. He wondered what the difference was between them both and if this is what they call society's inequality. He wonders if it will change when he's an adult and if power will bridge the gap. He couldn't find the answer as a kid, so bullying felt refreshing. He came to love the superiority of tormenting someone weaker than him. As he was bullying someone, Riku suddenly told them to stop and asked why they would do that. He started bullying Riku the same way, and after a while, he heard Riku started learning karate. By chance, he joined the dojo he used to go to before his parents' divorce. He went to check on him out of curiosity. The teacher there asked if Riku was from his school. Ryo declined, so the teacher said Riku's got good instincts and might end up stronger than him someday. Ryo was shocked to hear this and remarked that Riku already had everything and things he didn't have, like a kind mother. He questioned if he would really surpass him even in fighting. Presently, Riku tells Ryo to die and rushes forward. Ryuji is surprised to see that Riku's going for the finish with a reckless strike and wonders where he learnt to be so clutch. Riku remarks that ever since he started going to the dojo, every morning, every night, no matter what, he never missed practice. One day, the teacher was shocked to see that the floor came loose. Reiji didn't keep training all this time to beat Ryo. There was something else he wanted to beat. He punches Ryo in the stomach, knocking him down. Ryo warily asks why he looks like that and tells him to be happier that he beat him. However, Riku says if he's happy about it, then Ryo will think, "I'll beat you next time," which is pointless. Ryo raises his fist, remarking that he also hated being weak, hated himself for not being able to fight back no matter what his parents did to him. He inwardly says he's known that he can't beat Riku ever since they were kids, but he didn't want to admit it and falls unconscious. As Riku stirs, Makio grabs him and says he did nice work. He says he's seriously impressed. Riku managed to take down the Ryo Aibu. However, Saito asks what the hell that reckless way of fighting was and says in the end, he just went in on a desperation charge. Riku apologizes, but Saito smilingly thanks him. Hokuto-ren realize this fight is their loss since they've lost 2 out of 3 fights, but Renya says it's not over yet and says it looks like they really plan on crushing them completely. Reiji tells Renya Crawler needs strength for what's coming and declares that they're all going to get swallowed up by them right here, but Renya angrily tells him to not get full of himself. They rush forward to attack and their kicks clash. As they're relentlessly fighting, Riku wonders if they're even human since they're on a totally different level than him. Makio acknowledges that they're incredible and says they didn't even grow up in the same world as them. He admits you can tell they've been up against some seriously dangerous adults. 8 years ago, Sawanobe was way more dangerous than it is now. It was the kind of place where men or women would get taken if someone named a price. That's where those 2 former crawler grew up. Rize is cornered by a man who asks what the big deal is and asks her to just come over here and give him a little service. She annoyingly tells him to knock it off and says she's still in middle school, but he says he doesn't mind before the man is suddenly kicked in the face by Reiji, who orders him to not put his filthy hands on his sister. Renya asks Rize if she's okay as the man angrily says they'll pay for this. Rize smilingly tells him to get lost and says they're not so weak they'd lose to scummy adults like that. However, Rize smacks them on the head for raising their hands at people all the time and asks what happened if the man went to the police. Reiji says they were just trying to help, so she says she'd be fine with something like that and women are strongest when it really counts. More importantly, she asks Renya if he wants to stay for dinner again tonight since the lady at the yakitori place gave them some extra. Reiji cheerily tells him to come eat since his folks aren't coming home anyway, so Renya agrees. Reiji's father cheerily welcomes them back, and Renya apologizes for always imposing on them, but Rize tells him to not worry about it since he can think of them as family. Reiji tells him to eat plenty of yakitori for Rise's share too, so Sei annoyingly says she'll leave his side dish out tomorrow if that's the case. After dinner, Reiji tells Renya he could just stay over, but Renya says he's good and will go home today. The man from before corners them and angrily says they really did a number on him, so it's time to teach them how harsh adults can be. 2 men suddenly appear behind them and they shockingly realize they're Yakuza. One of the men apologetically says he's supposed to back even a geezer like that and tells them to call it part of their education. It's their job too, so he asks them to not hold it against them. Later, Reiji angrily calls the man a coward for calling in help when he can't win himself and says they piss him off. Reiji asks Renya what he's doing just standing there and questions if he's not going to hit back. Renya says rushing in without thinking won't change anything. He draws something and says it's their team logo. He explains that there are things they can't do alone but can as a team. He smilingly says they'll break free from the crappy adults and live free, so they'll build a team for that.